In some countries, it's mandatory for men to join the military for a while, so that if there's a chance that the country is at war and the army needs more recruits, they know where to look. And while we might think that celebrities are going to get carte blanche because of their social standing, that is not the case. Take for example South Korea, one of the fastest growing economies of the world. Due to the fact that the Southeast Asian country has never officially ceased its military confrontation with North Korea, military conscription is still enacted. And it is a little surprising when we see a famous athlete being required to run through those nerve-wracking military drills. Hello everyone and welcome to yet another one-of-its-kind video on Goalside, a unique football channel that loves to give you a unique view on the game that you love. Before we talk about the video, do make sure to tap the bell icon to subscribe to our channel and share our content. We always keep trying to bring the best videos to you, so if there's a particular topic you have in mind, mention it in the comment section and we might include it in one of our upcoming videos. Okay, so in today's video, we're going to talk about the curious case of Tottenham star Son Heung-Min, and how he will be crawling under a bridge, a barbed wire, climbing on ropes and learning how to use an assault rifle before aiming a grenade at an empty barrel. Yes, that is correct. While the rest of the world is in quarantine, Son Heung-Min will be facing all kinds of risks in a bid to stay ready for when his country needs him the most. We're talking about a guy who has always been there for South Korea on the pitch, and now he will be making a huge contribution to Korea's cause off of it. So what are we going to talk about in this video? Well, for starters, we're going to give you guys a bit of a background on military service in South Korea before turning on our time machine and travelling back a few years when Son avoided military service by helping South Korea to a gold medal in the Asian Games. But hey, wouldn't this become quite a drag if we didn't talk about instances in history when some really famous football players had to do military service? We're also going to talk about all the tough and dangerous things Son will be doing during his military training and the consequences if he doesn't show up for it. In life, there are implications on everything, so we will also discuss the impact of this training on Son's Tottenham career. So without adding more meters to this cliffhanger, let's begin. The origins of South Korea military conscription. The Constitution of the Republic of Korea, which was drafted in 1948, requires all citizens to have the duty of national defense, under the conditions as prescribed by the Military Service Act of 1949. All men aged 19 and above are required to enter military service for up to 2 years. However, there is a law of conscientious objection from military service now, which means that those who don't want to be a part of this activity have to come up with proof that they cannot be a part of military service. And in case someone is lying about their inability to do military service, the South Korean government holds the right to have you imprisoned. How did Son avoid military conscription the first time? Back in the 2018 Asian Games, a lot was written about Son Heung-Min's future, since at that time he was very much on the verge of leaving Tottenham to complete his military training. However, South Korea went on to win the Asian Games, and based on a government ruling which exempts athletes from taking part in military service due to their performances, the talented forward was given an exemption. But this time around, Son will be participating in military service that will last for 4 weeks. Do you know which country Korea beat in the Asian Games final, which resulted in the whole national team getting exempted from military service? Answer this and you might win a $100 Amazon gift card. Make sure that you write your answers in the comment section. Before we talk about that, let's have a look at a few players from the past who have been in the military before they became professional footballers. Bert Calculon. The legendary German goalkeeper put in some stellar displays for Manchester City between 1949 and 1964, but it's a little known fact that he joined the Luftwaffe during the Second World War. The infamous unit had 1,000 men, and Trautmann was one of the 90 men who survived before being captured by British soldiers. Trautmann was awarded 5 medals, which also included an Iron Cross. However, after the war, Trautmann moved to England permanently and lived there for the rest of his days. Fritz Walter won the World Cup for Germany in 1954, but before that, he was part of the Nazi forces and was on the front line when the Third Reich tried unsuccessfully to invade Russia. After serving a few years as a prisoner, Walter's luck worked out perfectly, as he was quite a star in the Soviet-run prison league. Timo Tainio. The story of the Finnish striker is that he was almost on the verge of joining Manchester United, but when his country called, Tainio called back Sir Alex Ferguson and explained to him the whole situation. The Scot decided to wait for him while the player finished his military training. However, once the training was done, things had changed and the Finland international moved to France. Eric Cantona was a larger-than-life figure around Old Trafford and one of the driving forces of a Manchester United team that would go on to absolutely dominate the Premier League era in its first 2 decades. And while Cantona has been in movies and is enjoying life after football, the Frenchman served in the army for 2 years before returning to professional football in 1986. But hey, Isn't it a little strange and ironic that Cantona was trained to be disciplined, but he had a rather poor disciplinary career for most of it? Bruce Grobbelaar is one of the most famous African players to represent Liverpool. The Zimbabwean was one of the finest goalkeepers of his time and won multiple league titles for the Reds. But before all that, Grobbelaar served in the Rhodesian army and spent a good part of his youth fighting in the Civil War. So now that we've given you something extra, let's get back to how life would be for Son Heung-min once he starts his military service. Now that he's set to turn 28 in July, the former Bayer Leverkusen man needs to complete military service before his birthday. The forward is already in South Korea at the moment since the Spurs allowed him to go back and continue his recovery from a fractured arm. Now many of you must be wondering why Son is doing the military service when he was already exempted from it 2 years ago. Well, the answer to this is that had Son not been exempted from service, he would have been in the military for 2 years. But South Korea's rules state that every man has to be in military service for a minimum of 4 weeks. So I'm sure you must be wondering how a normal day would look like for the Premier League star. To start with, it's not going to be an easy 4-week sojourn for Son. And there's a chance that training sessions under Jose Mourinho would be less relentless than the training he would receive by the men in boots. Son would be exposed to a wide array of elements such as tear gas and given proper training of how to shoot a rifle. While he isn't a hard man on the pitch, Son will be given some serious combat training, which means that in the future, players might be careful not to rub him the wrong way. Apart from this, Son will also go through exercises aimed at developing the chemical, biological, radiological and nuclear side of modern warfare. This is definitely some serious stuff. If that wasn't enough, we would probably get to see Son as a totally different man when he returns to playing football. Enlisted in Marine Corps, Son will be put through a grueling schedule that will see him do the sort of things you normally don't associate with modern football players. This is what an official had to say about Son's mandatory military training. The Cbrn training is usually the toughest part of the boot camp. Once you're in the military, you should be able to fire a rifle, breathe in the gas, and participate in a battle, rolling and crawling about the field. During the march, our regular Marine Corps recruits would bring 40 kilograms of equipment, but it could be much lighter for alternative trainees depending on the time. Clearly, this is going to be Son's toughest test yet. Facing ruthless opposition is one thing, but going through the daily life of a soldier is completely different. Throw in the fact that he wouldn't be able to enjoy the luxurious lifestyle he enjoys as a football star playing in the most well-paid league in the world, and we expect Son to come back with a different perspective towards life. However, fans of the mercurial forward should not be worried that their favourite goalscorer is risking his life, because the South Korean army has already said that they will be keeping the Asian Games gold medalist fighting fit. Yep, that was the term they used. How will Tottenham cope? For any professional club, their player is a huge investment, so you do have to understand if there is some apprehension coming out of the confines of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Military trainings tend to be long, hard, overwhelming as well, especially for someone who isn't used to such a life. There is always a small chance that the athlete might not return as the same person he used to be. It's a grueling period, and it can change your entire personality. This is why Tottenham would want to make sure that their star man is in the right frame of mind and in great shape once he's back in London. Son will not be back before May, and in all honesty, it won't be a huge loss for the club since the COVID-19 crisis has already put a halt to pretty much everything in life. Premier League football isn't going to come back anytime soon, so this military adventure might have come at the perfect time for the Spurs, who should be happy that at least they were forced into seeing the back of one of their most consistent performers for almost 2 years. But hey, on the other side of the spectrum, Tottenham might end up welcoming back a rejuvenated player with a few more attributes added to his belt, such as resiliency, leadership, teamwork, and the sort of work ethic military training can pretty much guarantee. At present, Tottenham are really lacking true leaders on the pitch. The likes of Tanguy Ndombele, Eric Dyer, and Jan Vertonghen have not really led by example through their performances on the pitch. Harry Kane, on the other hand, seems to be linked with a move away from the club whenever the transfer window opens. This leaves Son Heung-min as the only senior figure at the club who can help the team move on from a campaign where the wheels were essentially falling off. This hasn't been a great season for Tottenham, but maybe this is exactly what Jose Mourinho needs. A proper leader on the pitch with the right grit and desire to muscle his team towards a better path, where consistently good outings on the field become commonplace.